We're on. Hey class. The purpose of this video is to make sure that going forward with our online lessons, our virtual classroom, that we adopt the right mindset going into this. You see, I think things may be a little bit more challenging for us given this environment that we're going to be in now. Watching me online, reading things online, and studying these things together in this way, I think we can do it though. And so, what do I say to you guys often when studying the scriptures? Now, you and I, as the scripture scholars that we are, because we really have been pouring through the Old Testament pretty good this year, so we are scholars in that way. But we say that we need two lenses when reading the scriptures like we do, right? You see that I wear glasses, and so they actually have two different prescriptions, one different one for each eye. And so this eye is a little bit stronger than the other eye. So the prescription is different than this one, but together they help me see perfectly. And it looks as though it were one, as though it were perfect, right? And so we know that in our study of the scriptures, what are the two lenses that we read it with? One is the historical lens and the other is the spiritual lens, right? And so in the historical lens, what are we looking for? We're looking for who's in the story, where it is, everything that's going on around that story, both in time and in space, and all those facts that we get out of that story, right? Then we have the spiritual lens. What is God saying to me in this scripture? What does he want me to learn about the nature of myself, the nature of humankind, and the nature of God, and how is he speaking to me in that way? But given our current circumstance of all this online learning, I think that we need kind of a stronger prescription. I think we need to turn it up, to magnify it a little bit, don't you? And so before I started this video, I was kind of praying for God to give me a scripture that we can that we could kind of adopt and think about as we go forward in our learning. And so I'm going to read to you something from the scripture of it's from Luke, from the Gospel of Luke. And remember that there are four Gospels, right? Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And so what we're about to go through is from the Gospel of Luke, and it's in chapter 8, and it's verse 43. Just a few verses. So pay attention to this, please. Once again, Luke 8:43. And a woman afflicted with hemorrhages for 12 years, who had spent her whole livelihood on doctors and was unable to be cured by anyone, came up behind him and touched the tassel on his cloak. That's Jesus. Immediately her bleeding stopped. Jesus then asked, "Who touched me?" While all were denying it, Peter said, "Master, the crowds are pushing and pressing against you." But Jesus said, "Someone has touched me, for I know that power has gone out from me." When the woman realized she had not escaped notice, she came forward trembling. Falling down before him, she explained in the presence of all the people why she had touched him and how she had been healed immediately. He said to her, "Daughter, your faith has saved you. Go in peace." Now, why do I think that scripture is so appropriate for our circumstance? You see, in this story, in this gospel story, what's happening? Jesus is traveling all throughout Galilee, preaching, performing miracles, and people are really beginning to believe that Jesus is who he says he is. He is the Lord. He is the Son of God. He is God himself. And what's happening in this situation here? You see, he's going through the crowds. Everyone wants to see Jesus. Everyone wants something from him, like a miracle or healing, something like that, right? And everyone's waiting in the crowd for Jesus to come up to them. Maybe I'll get to see him. Maybe I'll get to touch him. Maybe I'll get to ask him for something. Maybe he'll preach in front of us. Who knows? And this woman, who was seen to be unclean because it said she had a hemorrhage, which means she was bleeding. In the Old Testament Mosaic law, a woman who was bleeding was seen to be unclean and shouldn't be around anyone at all. She'd have to go through a ritual bath ceremony. But of all these people, she might have been the lowest, meaning someone who shouldn't have been there at all. But really, what made her the greatest was her faith, right? You see, she wasn't one of the people that was waiting for Jesus to come up to them or pass by them. You see, she had kind of made her way through the crowd undetected, kind of hidden, right? And what did she want? She wasn't reaching out for a handshake. She wasn't even waving to Jesus, hoping that he might just look at her. She just wanted to touch a piece of his garment. She just wanted to get a quick touch of his clothing. And that little touch of the robe or cloak that Jesus was wearing, it was enough for her. Why? Because her faith was so great that that little touch gave her what she had hoped for, what she had prayed for. And you see, I think given our current church circumstance, we're kind of used to being spoiled, right? We're used to being one of the people waiting in the crowd for Jesus to come to us or to pass by us, because we used to have that luxury of going to Mass whenever we wanted, right? Going into the church to pray whenever we wanted, going to our Sunday school class, which we look forward to so much, right? And now we don't have that luxury anymore. Now, I think we need to adopt the mindset of this woman, having great faith and just reaching out for a quick moment while Jesus passes to touch a piece of his cloak. And like this woman, if our faith is enough, then that little touch is enough. And so you and I, going forward, we no longer have that benefit of meeting in our classroom, right? Of seeing each other in person, doing these things together. Now we have this added challenge of doing it online, doing it on our computers and our phones, and I hope it's enough. But you see, if our hope and our prayer is great, like this woman is, then it will be enough. And so, class, going forward, as we go into our lessons, some of them you'll see me in videos like this. Some of them you'll be reading something from your own Bibles. Some of them, some things online I'll post for you guys to study and answer. But be like this woman, okay? It might not be as much as some other people get, right? It might not be the luxury of having Jesus himself in front of you, like he is in front of us at the Mass. It might not be like the luxury of having a teacher, like myself or Juan, standing in front of you in the classroom, right? But it has to be enough for us. It has to be enough for us, okay? And so let's think about that going forward in the rest of our classes, okay? Don't grow lazy. Don't grow complacent as we go forward, because we made so much progress so far this year, and I think we can keep doing it, okay? So let's be like the woman in this story. So until the next video, take care